Very good morning, all of you. How are you all doing? Hopefully, all are doing good. Anyways, in today's class, we are going to see chapter 5 in history, that is print culture and the modern world. Print culture. What do you know about printing? What do you know about printing? You all know printing press is, it has got such immense advantages in the society which had created so many good things which paved way for so many other stuff like spreading ideas, making the people to understand what they are suffering. Okay, it had helped the people in so many ways. Actually, in during French Revolution, people have used printing as a most important weapon. Okay, so first of all, you will have to make your people clear on what's happening. Then you can just make them to do so many what is actually the required thing. Understood? So printing, when we talk about printing, there are so many advantages, but how the people have lived before the age of print, with that we will start and we'll end up with the advantages. Now, it is difficult for us to imagine a world without printed matter. We find evidence of print everywhere around us, in books, journals, newspapers, prints of famous paintings, and also in everyday things like theater programs, all those. Okay. So, in this chapter, we will look at the development of print, how print was developed, that we will see, from its beginnings in East Asia to its expansion in Europe and India. Understood? Now, book making before the age of print. This is how they have made books. So, in page number 105, they might have given the age of print. There were no printing. So, this is a royal workshop. It is shown in the figure. It is a royal workshop in 16th century, much before printing began in India. Understood? 16th century. When you talk about 16th century, how it should be? Like 1600, 1501. This is called, 16th century. So, during those days, a royal workshop in the 16th century, much before printing began in India. You can see the text being dictated. So, generally they will dictate. Okay, they will dictate, written and illustrated. Illustrated in the sense the pages are decorated. Understood? Now, the art of writing and illustrating by hand was important in the age before print. Before print comes, the one who who is good at handwriting, they are called calligraph. Scribes, the one who is writing is called scribe. Think about what happened to these forms of art with the coming of printing machines. So, automatically when print machine comes, these people have lost their importance. Okay, previously they were celebrated, they were recruited by the booksellers. Understood? So, if a book selling company irukku appadina, they have recruited lot of scribes. Okay, so calligraphy abindrathu, it's the art of beautiful and stylish writing. So, now we are going to see the first printed books. Okay, how it was. So, number one, whenever they ask you to write about printing in general, okay, printing in general, you can go with the earliest print technology was developed in, where it was developed? China, Japan and Korea. Okay, China, Japan and Korea. This was a system of hand printing. So, we are talking about the very beginning stage of print. Understood? So, they were doing hand printing in these three countries from AD. Okay, so from AD, that is nowadays they are calling before Common Era. Okay, before Christ and after Christ, like that. Okay, so AD 594 onwards. 594 onwards, books in China were printed by rubbing paper. Okay, generally how they have printed book in China? They have printed the books by rubbing paper, also invented there against the inked surface of wood blocks. So, they will rub the papers against the inked surface. Inked surface in the sense they will apply ink on the wood blocks. Wood blocks mele ink apply pannittu, they will just rub. This is how Chinese have printed their books. Okay, initially. That is hand printing only. Now, as both sides of the thin porous sheet could not be printed, the traditional Chinese book. So, this was a question, my dear. Why the accordion book was folded and stitched at the side. Okay, there was an accordion book in China which is very famous. Chinese accordion book in the sense it is folded. Ariya madichi oru pakkama the it is stitched, it is folded and stitched at one side nu sollirukangalla. So why is it so? It was the question. So the answer for that question is, as both the sides of the thin porous sheet could not be printed because it's so porous, it's so thin, we cannot print on both the sides. ஒரு முறை நம்ம ரப்பிங் பேப்பர்லாம் வச்சு பண்ணுறது it is very delicate, ரொம்ப சாஃப்டாக இருக்கும் இல்லையா, அதனால the sides are it is folded and stitched at the side. Understood? The answer should be the Chinese accordion book. Accordion is nothing but an instrument. Accordion book, the Chinese accordion book, what they have used, because it is as both the sides of the thin, it is so thin and porous sheet. What do you mean by porous? Okay, minute holes would be there, that is called porous. Okay, so porous sheet could not be printed. That is the reason why the traditional Chinese book was folded and stitched at the side. So generally when they ask you to write about the beginning of printed books in the world, okay, the beginning of the era of printing, if they ask you to write like that, you should start with these. Now superbly skilled craftsmen could duplicate with remarkable accuracy the beauty of calligraphy. Okay, so the beauty of calligraphy is in the sense those who have got very stylish handwriting were recruited and they were given a lot of importance, they were paid highly. Okay, இப்போ எப்படி for example in today's world இங்க artificial intelligence and also cloud9 architects இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய சொல்றாங்க இல்லையா IT forumல. So these are all the job profiles, they are actually paid highly. Understood? But once upon a time, beginning of the printing, they were paid highly. Now the imperial state of China, again you are talking about China. In the first paragraph you will have to discuss all these, and the imperial state of China was a very long time the major producer of printed material. So who was the major producer of printed material? China. China was the major producer of printed material. China possessed a huge bureaucratic system. Why so? So why China was said to be the major producer of printed material? Why? Why it is a major producer of printed material? Why so? Because they have got huge bureaucratic system. Okay, so bureaucratic system which recruited its personnel, and see, please be clear with this, personnel is different from personal, you know very well. Okay, going out today after 6 p.m. is my personal. Okay, but this is personnel officers. So in order to recruit the officers, they have conducted bureaucratic exams. For that they have printed the books extensively, ரொம்ப அதிகமா print பண்ணிருக்காங்க. Okay, now so textbooks for the examination were printed in vast numbers under the sponsorship of the imperial state. From the 16th century, the number of examination candidates went up and increased the volume of print. So initially you should know where the printing was originated, how they have printed, rubber, rubbing paper, inked, on the inked surface of the wood blocks, all those, and accordion book. It is so thin and porous sheet, so which cannot be printed on both the sides, like it is folded and stitched at one side. Okay, and you will have to talk about the production of material. Why is it so high in China? The reason is they have recruited a lot of personnel through their bureaucratic examination. As the day passes, as the year passes, the candidates appearing for the examinations went up. Understood? Now by the 17th century, we have started this answer with 16th century. Now we are going to see about 17th century. So what happened in 17th century? As urban culture bloomed in China, this is the other reason. Initially we have seen they have conducted bureaucratic examination, the candidates, and for the book reading materials we have printed vast numbers. Now in 17th century, urban culture bloomed. Urban culture bloomed. What is urban culture, my dear? Okay, civilization, urban culture bloomed in China. The reason is uses of print diversified. See, always people those who are said to be elites, okay, elites, they have the habit of reading books. Generally நீங்க இதுக்கு முன்னாடி எல்லாம் நீங்க இன்டர்வியூஸ் அட்டெண்ட் பண்ண போனீங்கன்னா they will ask about your hobbies. Nowadays I don't think so. Reading books ன்றத ஒரு ஹாபியா போடுறவங்க there are very less. people. But once upon a time it was something very famous. எங்கே போனாலுமே they will ask about your hobby. அதில் reading books வந்து ரொம்ப காமனாக இருக்கும். Understood? So that is called urban culture. So the print diversified. Print was no longer used just by scholar officials. Only officials, those who are in office, they have used printing. But nowadays, you know, the urban culture bloomed. So even the ordinary people started reading books, started using printed materials. But initially it was not so. Do you understand? So merchants used print in their everyday life. Merchants, they were not highly educated, but still they have used print as they collected trade information. In order to maintain trade information, they have used print. Reading increasingly became a leisure activity. Understood? So what are the things you could see in urban culture? You will have to talk about merchants. Okay, for their trade information they have used. For their trade information they have used printed materials. And next thing, leisure activity. It has become a leisure activity. What do you mean by leisure? Free. Okay, it's leisure. So free time la they have spent their time in reading books. And the new readership preferred fictional narratives. What are all the books they have preferred? Okay, so generally they have preferred fictional narratives, poetries, and autobiographies, anthologies, okay, of literary masterpieces and romantic plays. Okay, so they have preferred all those books. What would be your preference? Ashwin, what would be your preference? Tell me the truth. What would be your preference among the printed materials? They have preferred so many, okay, depending upon the individual. Huh? I'm sorry, I'm not getting you. See, I have given a big list. Understood? What are the list? Fictional narratives, poetry, autobiographies, anthologies of literary masterpieces and romantic plays. Do you understand my question? Okay, you have understood, but you are stammering to tell the answer. No need to. So with this silence, I have come to a conclusion which one you wanted to help. Okay, please be seated. It's understood now. So rich women began to read, and many women began publishing their poetry and plays. And also, you should talk about this. Rich women. You should talk about rich women. What they have done? What rich women have done? They have cooked well and ate. They have spent much of the time, began to read, and many women began to publishing their poetry and plays. They started publishing so many books. Understood? And wives of scholar officials, okay, rich women, and apart from that, wives of scholar officials, okay, officer's wife. So they published their works, and courtesans, okay, wrote about their lives. Understood? So this is the 17th century happening in China. Understood? And this new reading culture was accompanied by a new technology. Western printing techniques and mechanical presses were imported in the late 19th century. Understood? So generally we have started printing methods in China in the 16th century we have started. They have got various other types. Now we are talking about 17th century. Urban culture bloomed in China. So people of various categories, they started reading books. They started using, right from the merchant till the wives of scholars, they have used print for their everyday activity. Now, in the mid 17th century, there was an introduction of Western printing press. Do you understand? Western printing techniques and mechanical presses, because previously they were using hand printing, they have used rubbing of paper and all those. Now it is Western techniques and mechanical presses they started using. They started imported. From where they have imported? Enga import pannanga? So mechanical presses were imported in the late 19th century as Western powers established their outpost in China. Now Shanghai became hub of new print culture, catering to Western style school. From hand printing, there was now a gradual shift to mechanical printing. Do you understand? So there could be a question like, explain what are all the incidents which led to the printing from hand printing to mechanical printing. There are two types of printing you have studied with respect to China. China பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் ரெண்டு printing இருந்திருக்கு அதோட ஹிஸ்டரியில. ஒன்று hand printing and the other one is mechanical printing. So before that there were so many incidents happened. Understood? There was a gradual shift because hand printing விட கண்டிப்பா mechanical prints would have produced more number of copies. அதான் நமக்கு வேணும்ல. இதை விட modern printing ஜோஹன் குட்டன்பர்க் பண்ணது அதை விட இன்னும் okay அதிகம். Now is it clear about China? Whenever we talk about China, these are all the information you will have to write. Okay. Now print in Japan. Print in Japan. So Buddhist missionaries from China introduced. Who introduced printing in Japan? From China only. Okay. So from China only. Buddhist missionary. What do you mean by missionary, my dear? What do you mean by missionaries? They travel. Okay. They travel various places and in the name of Lord. Okay. Wherever they go, they will speak about their Lord. They will spread their religion. They are called missionaries. Okay. Missionaries. Or you could say evangelists. Okay. All those. So preachers are something different. They will obviously preach, but a priest is nothing but they will be like there would be a church. Adila வேலை பண்றவங்க, adila service பண்றவங்க, they are called priest. Okay. They are very much concentrated with one or two places. That's all. But missionaries, they don't have any confinement. ஒரு கூட்டுக்குள்ள இருக்க மாட்டாங்க. Okay. They will go to places and they do service. Now, so those Buddhist missionaries from China introduced hand printing technology into Japan around. So Japan is getting this technique in AD 768 to 770. Understood? But whereas in China, when it was introduced? AD 594. Can be asked in 1 marks here. Okay. In Japan, it was introduced much later. That too because of Buddhist missionaries. Understood? Now, the oldest Japanese book, what was it? Diamond Sutra. So, with the help of this technique, okay, what was the technique? Hand printing technology. Hand printing technology அவங்களுக்கு இப்போதான் introduce ஆகுது ஜப்பானுக்கு. Understood? அந்த hand printing technology they have printed what? The Japanese book, that is the oldest Japanese book, that is Diamond Sutra, in AD 868. Because it's very important, no? So in so many exams it is getting repeated. There are chances you will get the year. Okay. You may be asked to write about the year. Now containing 6 sheets. So tell about Diamond Sutra. It is the oldest Japanese book. It has got 6 sheets. Okay, 6 sheets of text and woodcut illustrations. My people from various classes, okay, from the rich to the poor, they preferred illustration. Illustration அது ரொம்ப beautifully decorate பண்ணியிருக்கணும். Understood? ரொம்ப decoration இருந்துச்சுன்னா they will charge more. Understood? That's it. So pictures were printed on textiles, playing cards and paper money. In medieval Japan, poets and prose writers were regularly published and the books were cheap and abundant. Okay. So ரொம்ப அதிகமா அவங்க பண்ணதால books cheap ஆச்சு, abundant ஆச்சு. Abundantனா நிறைய. Okay. Apart from that, in the 13th century, printing wood blocks of the Tripitaka Koreana or the Korean collection of Buddhist scriptures. Buddhist scriptures oda and the Korean collection என்னப்பா? Tripitaka Koreana. Okay. Now what was the name? Edo. What is Edo? Okay, Tokyo. Okay, Edo is nothing but Tokyo. What is Ceylon? Sri Lanka. Okay. What is United Provinces? Uttar Pradesh. Okay, good. So paintings depicted an elegant urban culture involving artists, courtesans and tea house gatherings. Libraries and bookstores were packed with hand printed material, all these. Okay. Generally in Japan, see, Japan is known for their perfection. Japan is known for their punctuality. Understood? So you could learn a lot of manners from Japanese. They live long. They respect others. They are so happy. So generally I love the place Japan. Okay, personally speaking, here I don't want to really compare anything. Okay, so how they are bringing up their kids and how the children are being brought up here. Okay, namle oralukku parvala, in so many other ways it is even more worse. So always learn one thing, you will have to be the giver of love, you will have to be an example. Okay, anyways, coming to the topic. What about Kitagawa Utamaro? So that is nothing but what? Ukiyo. Ukiyo அப்படின்றது என்ன? Pictures of the floating world. Ukiyo. And ukiyo print by Kitagawa Utamaro. Understood? So now the morning scene. Okay, morning scene. Ukiyo printed by. Okay, the morning scene. Ukiyo is nothing but a, it's a print. That's all. And the prints எல்லாம் வரையறவங்க யாரு? Kitagawa Utamaro. That's all. Now print comes to Europe. This is also frequently asked question. Yeah, print, how the print comes to Europe. So generally it was started in China. In which year? 594. And then to Japan 700 and something. Okay, 770 like that. And the Japanese book 868. Okay, so like this you can prepare a, in the small piece of paper you can write one after the other and you can fix it in your textbook. Okay, so that whenever you look at it you could remember it. Now print comes to Europe, so which is coming actually much later. For centuries silk and spices from China flowed into Europe through what is the route? Basic route, Silk route. Okay, in the 11th century Chinese paper reached. Okay, so when it is reaching in the 11th century only. Okay, in the 11th century Chinese paper reached Europe via the same route. Understood? So Chinese in the 11th century Chinese paper is reaching Europe via Silk route. Silk route is nothing but a very important business route. Okay, so generally what are the stuff traveled? Silk, spices from China, okay, flowed into Europe. Generally see, China was also under the British control, so they have almost colonized most of the people. Now most importantly here, most important one more question is asked. Paper made possible the production of manuscripts carefully written by scribes. So what do you think about manuscripts? Manuscripts are nothing but it is written by human beings. Okay, it is written by human beings. Manuscripts, and at the same time which was written by scribes. Manuscripts are written by scribes. Who are called scribes? Who are called scribes? The one who writes. Okay, the one who writes. Now most importantly, when you talk about Europe and especially in case of printing, you should remember one fellow. Who is that? Marco Polo. Okay, so in the year 1295, okay, Marco Polo, who was he? He was an Italian explorer. Okay, a great explorer returned to Italy after many years of exploration in China. So see, through Marco Polo only Europe is getting the knowledge of printing. Okay, China la irundhu Europe ku அவர் printing kondu vandadu avurdan அந்த knowledge. As you read about, China already had the technology of woodblock printing. Marco Polo brought this knowledge back with him. Now Italians began producing books with woodblocks. Okay, and soon the technology spread to other parts of Europe. Luxury editions were still handwritten on very expensive vellum. What do you mean by vellum? It is not what you eat. Vellum is nothing but a parchment made of animal skin. That should be meant for aristocratic circles and rich monastics. Okay, libraries which scoffed at printed books as cheap vulgarities. Okay, generally in Europe, see, it is known for their proudness. Always Europe is known for their proudness. They always maintain standards. அப்படினு அவங்க நினைச்சுப்பாங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். I don't know. Generally they have preferred vellum, because vellum they have recruited careful scribes. They have written, it is beautifully illustrated. They really don't want to go with printed material. They consider it as very cheap because all the people are using that they don't want. Okay, they wanted to maintain that uniqueness. புரியுதா? அதனால they still continued hand printing தான் அவங்க prefer பண்ணாங்க. Understood? Aristocracy na the dominant class. Okay, aristocracy and other people. Okay, rich circle. Now as the demand for the books increased, so whenever you talk about Europe printing பத்தி பேசணும்னா you should remember Silk route. Initially you should write about Silk route, then you should write about Marco Polo. 1295, Marco Polo, because on his way to Italy he had brought the knowledge of woodblock printing. Okay, அப்பவே அவங்க 595 ல என்ன பண்ணிட்டாங்க? China 594 sorry 594 they were using wood block printing and all those, but இப்போதான் யூரோப்க்கே வருது printing. Understood? Now as the demand for books increased, booksellers all over Europe began exporting books to many different countries. Book fairs were held at various places. Production and handwritten manuscripts were also organized. All those you can see. Okay, scribes are skilled. Scribes are nothing but skilled handwriters. Understood? Skilled handwriters. Okay. Now scribes, no longer solely employed by wealthy or influential patrons, but increasingly by booksellers as well. More than 50 scribes often worked for one bookseller. ஒரு booksellerக்கு எவ்வளவு பேர் இருப்பாங்க? More than, okay, so more than 50. Okay, so booksellers are recruited by them. But the production of handwritten manuscripts could not satisfy the ever increasing demand. How much ever they recruit, அது அந்த அளவுக்கு sufficient-ஆ இல்ல. So what they have done, and also copying was an expensive, laborious and time consuming business. Okay, so generally you will have to be very clear with this. இப்போதான் யூரோப்பில் வருது, யூரோப்பியன் கண்ட்ரிக்கு. சைனா என்னதான் ட்ரெடிஷ்னலாக இருந்தாலும் யூரோப்புக்கு வந்த உடனே அவனோட நாலேஜை பாருங்கள், இப்போ தான் வருது, 1295 தான் வருது. பட் சூன் ஆஃப்டர் எப்போ அவங்க பிரிண்டிங் கண்டுபிடிச்சிட்டாங்க, when they have invented 1430s Johann Gutenberg started doing something. That is their capability. Okay, they know how to captivate, they know how to rule the country, they know how to do more inventions. புரியுதா? சைனால இட்ஸ் a long break. எப்போ 594ல பார்த்தோம் சைனால, AD 594. பட் இப்போ வந்த ஒரு டெக்னாலஜியை அவன் அழகாக ப்ராசஸ் பண்ணி he had invented now. Okay, so now you be careful. இங்கே ஒரு there is a very important question here about manuscripts. Why there is a shift from mechanical printing to the printing press? Okay, the reason is manuscripts were fragile, awkward to handle. Those are the things, shortcomings of manuscript. Yeah, manuscripts வந்து நிறைய ரொம்ப நாள் செலிப்ரேட் பண்ணல. என்னென்ன what are the problems with manuscripts அப்படின்னா, manuscripts are fragile. அப்படின்னா என்ன? Yeah, it is easily broken and fragile, awkward to handle. You will have to handle this with care. Okay, awkward to handle, then could not be carried around or read easily. Their circulation therefore remained limited. So their circulation is limited. You cannot carry the manuscripts. இங்க அங்க தூக்கிட்டலாம் போக முடியாது. But the book can be carried anywhere now. With the growing demand for books, woodblock printing gradually became more and more popular. By the early 15th century, woodblocks were being widely used in Europe to print textiles, playing cards, all those. Okay, they have used it for various reasons. எப்போ Marco Polo, when he had brought this knowledge to Italy and other European countries spread ஆச்சோ, all they started using woodblock printing. But இது வரைக்கும் தான். அதுக்கப்புறமா என்ன நடந்துச்சுன்னு பார்க்கலாம். So Johann Gutenberg, who he was? Okay, there was clearly a great need for even quicker and cheaper reproduction, okay, of texts. This could only be with the invention of a new print technology. So there was a need, because readers வந்து it is ever increasing. ரொம்ப அதிகமாக readers increase ஆகிட்டே இருக்காங்க. woodblock printing எல்லாம் வேலைக்கு ஆகாது. So they have found a new technology called what they have invented? New print technology. There was a need for this. New print technology. So the breakthrough occurred at Strasbourg. What is Strasbourg? Place where he was born. Okay, place in Germany. It's a place in Germany. Hey, what do you know about Germany? Okay, it's an European country. Okay, you may remember Hitler and all those. Okay, Germany is an European country. அதில் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு place Strasbourg. Okay, now இது யூரோப்ல where Johann Gutenberg developed his first known printing press. Okay, he developed his first known printing press in 1930s. Johann Gutenberg. Okay, now what is this? Jigji of Korea is among the world's oldest existing books printed with movable metal type. Movable metal type, what it is called? Movable metal type அப்படினாலே உங்களுக்கு என்ன தோணும் அப்போ? Jig. Movable metal type. Okay. So now Gutenberg and the printing press. There are so many questions about Gutenberg. You will have to be clear about him. Gutenberg was a son of merchant and he grew up on a large agricultural estate. So generally he was a wealthy person. Okay. From his from his childhood he had seen wine olive presses. Okay, that was his role model. Okay, olive presses. So he had brought the model of olive presses. Became master of goldsmith. Okay, he learned art of polishing stones. Nalla alaga eppadilam stone polish pandrathu. See, he was so curious about things. Enna nadakudho. Okay, became a master of goldsmith and also acquired the enterprise to create lead molds used for making trinkets. So அவர் என்ன பண்ணிருக்காரு? He had also made trinkets. Trinkets na small ornaments. Trinkets na small ornaments. புரியுதா? Right from the beginning, from his childhood he had seen wine and olive presses. Wine and olive presses அது பார்த்திருக்காரு. அது எப்படி இது ஸ்குவீஸ் பண்ணி ஒரு லிக்விட் எடுக்குதோ அந்த ஸ்குவீசிங் மெக்கானிசமா பார்த்திருக்காரு. And also he had learned art of polishing, became master of goldsmith. He was a goldsmith. Goldsmith na தெரியும்ல, the one who is making gold ornaments. So அது தெரியும் அவருக்கு. And drawing on this knowledge, okay, Gutenberg adapted existing technology to design his innovation. The olive press provided the model for printing press. So olive press provided the model for him to invent a printing press. Understood? Now by 1448, so in 1448 Gutenberg perfected the system. The first book printed he printed was the Bible. It's very important. One more question. See, automatically it's an European country. People are they are worshipping Jesus Christ. So he had invented Bible. That was the first printed and the most widely printed book in the world even now. Okay. So about how many copies he had made? 180 copies. Okay. And it took how many years? 180 copies, 3 years to produce them by the standards of the time. This was fast production. See, I am giving you one more clue. Whenever they ask about printing in Europe, you can write about Gutenberg because it is also happening in Europe. Okay, அந்த மாதிரி யூரோப்ல என்ன நடக்குதுன்னு கேட்டா you can write about Johann Gutenberg. There is nothing wrong in it. Okay. Now you can say all those, and the metal letters imitated all those. Okay, the remaining stuff you can read. The second half of the 15th century saw 20 million copies of the printed books flooded the markets in Europe. Okay, soon, okay, as the years passing by, 4050 and 1550 printing presses were set up in most countries of Europe. Okay, ரொம்ப வேகமா 1448 ல I mean 1450 ல இருந்து ஒரு 100 years 1550 வரைக்கும் பாத்தீங்கன்னா நிறைய இடங்கள்ல in so many places they have set up printing presses. நிறைய இடத்துல printing press வச்சு they are doing printing ரொம்ப வைட்ல பண்றாங்க. Okay, second half of the 15th century saw 20 million copies. அப்போ வந்து 180 copies தான் அவரோட printing pressல. அதுவே ஒரு fast production இருந்துச்சு. And soon ஒரு 100 yearsல பாத்தீங்க அப்படினா 20 million வரைக்கும் it has the printing speed was increased. Okay, the number went up 16th century. About 16th century la பாத்தீங்கன்னா okay, in case of 15th century 20 million, before it reaches 16th century it had gone 200 million. Understood? So 200 million, like that, 200 million copies they started printing. Understood? This was a very fast production. How the printing of copies have got very good speed. How did they pick up speed அப்படிலாம் கேட்டிங்கன்னா இதெல்லாம் you can write all these. And also here you will have to see Platen. It's asked in 1 mark. Platen. So Platen in letterpress printing, Platen is a board which is pressed onto the back of the paper to get the impression from the type. Platen at the back of the paper, we will get impression. Understood? We can just press. At one time it is used to be wooden board, later it was of steel. Generally wooden அப்புறம் steel. Okay, generally இப்போ நம்ம railways ல கூட sleepers போடுவாங்கல்ல, between rails sleepers irukuma, it was of wooden, but nowadays concrete la podranga. It is to stop deforestation, that's all. It is as simple as that. Okay, thank you all. We'll see the remaining things in the next class. And most importantly, I'm sorry to tell this, the Gutenberg press could print 250 sheets on one side per hour. That's very important. How many sheets? 250 sheets on one side per hour. ஒரு மணி நேரம் ஆகும் 250 sheets per one side. Okay, that was their speed. That's all. How many characters he has got? 26 characters of Roman alphabet. Okay, that's all. Thank you. We'll see the remaining later. Bye.